Hello and welcome back to Prism& Company. My name is Colin, and on the docket today, my entire deck collection 2022. Boom, baby, that's right, we're back. If you've seen my previous deck collections, you'll know deck collection video number 1 was like an hour long, and it was talking very intricately about the art and the cards and what they stood for and all these things. Deck collection video number 2 was 5 minutes long. I decided to write a rap, and I sang about all my tarot decks, and that one's a wild ride if you want to go watch it. Both of those down below if you want to see them. This one, I want to kind of take a look at the collection where it stands now, of course, but take a look back, see what has made it through deck collection video 1 and 2 and 3. And for each of those things, I will be giving out awards. For people who are just joining decks that are new for this collection, we get the hot off the presses, BAM! Medal of Oneness. It doesn't have an official name, but that's what we get. For decks that have been around or stuck around for 2 videos, we have the green oozy medal of 2. And for decks that have been around all 3 videos, we have the shimmering 3. These are not official names. I will forget them. I'll probably call them different things along the way. So that's going to just have to be what it is. But I want to keep it easy and breezy and fun. I know we just had highly animated medals, but let's just chat, Let's just chat. I love chatting. I don't feel like we chat enough anymore. And I miss that, YouTube. Let's get into it. Let's chat, but first, cue the intro. First up, we have the Ancient Egyptian Tarot. This is my newest deck, and the deck that is, quite frankly, most on the fence for me right now. I have loved this deck from afar forever. It's got this 90s style to it. It looks like it was done in colored pencil, which I just love. And it's got an Egyptian theme, and I just go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs on Egyptian themes. And that being said, I think the chase might have been part of why I love this deck so much, because it was out of print forever. It finally came into print again, so I was able to grab a copy really inexpensively. And now that I have it in my hand, I still really like it, but I'm like, ooh, well, maybe. So it's in the early phases. We're still getting to know each other. We've gone on a coffee date. We're going to go see a movie, but, we'll see. We'll see. Where did the actual deck go? Come on now. Here we go. Bring the cards in. These are the backs of the cards. They're so cool. They're hieroglyphics. I've trimmed my copy of the deck, and I also edged it in the same kind of brown that the edges are on the front, which I think makes it look way better, quite frankly. This deck is really interesting. All the minors have square images on them. You can see the hieroglyphics around the edge. The majors break that symmetry and make it a rectangle on top, so it, of course, still has the name on the bottom. And it's beautiful. It depicts, from what I can tell, and I'm certainly no expert, a kind of more realistic idea of what Egypt would be like a little less romanticized. Not always. Clearly there's some times where we're getting very fanciful with our Egypt, but a lot of times it's just people sort of chilling in the desert. I'm sure we're going to get to some chilling in the desert cards here shortly. There we go. They're chilling in the desert, give or take, in Egyptian buildings. It's gorgeous. The style is so great. It's beautifully rendered. And there's something about it that just feels like, do I need this? I don't know. It's a weird energy to start out on, and I will assure you that I will glow about all the rest of these decks because, man almighty, I love where the collection is right now. I just went through a big purge, and in fact, there's a bunch of decks that I got in between the last deck update and this one that just will never get to see a video. They never made it. They got into the collection and then they left because they weren't right. And for me, that's the most important thing. I want a deck to be the right deck for the collection. I want to be able to grab any deck off the shelf and really have it speak to me and kind of ignite something in me, And I think this one will, but we shall see. Anyway, the Ancient Egyptian is the first one up, and it gets a a flaming medal of 1. Boom, boom. I forgot what the medal was for a second. Anyway, this is a newcomer to the collection. Obviously, it's the newest one, and it's a lovely one indeed. Next up is a deck that you could say has stuck around. Is a 2, by the way. It's the Anima Mundi Tarot. We're going in alphabetical order, side note if I didn't say that. The Anima Mundi Classic in the Colin Campbell collection. Like, not so classic that I've had it forever, but classic in my heart because it is like among my top favorite decks. And I don't know why. It's the weirdest thing. If you ask me, Colin Campbell, do you like animal decks? I would say, they're all right, but they're not really my jam. And yet here we are. We are looking at some of the worst cards right off the bat. I think that these are some of the weaker ones that just have sort of plain backgrounds, but these with like a little bit of space in them, they really... Jimmy my Christmas. That's not even a saying, but it happens. Oh, God, the School of Fish. The jellies, the cups in this deck. This is my favorite cup suit of any tarot deck. And I don't really love cup suits very much, and this one is the one that takes the cake. I think that's part of the reason it sticks around so much. I did a whole video on this one talking about how liminal the cards are. They're designed to put you in this liminal visual space. The times of day are often very liminal. It's very sort of just like it lulls you into this sense of just chill. At least it does for me. And I think it's so beautifully rendered. I love the skyscapes on it. It's a kind of animal deck that feels like it's not necessarily about the animals. It's about the chill, natural experience. This deck feels like I'm just going outside and, I don't know, meditating or just taking a deep breath, getting away from the camera, from the screen, from life, and just taking a sip of fresh air. Also, can we talk about that moon card? That moon card, if you haven't watched the Pippies, the first annual tarot award show, this won Best Major of my collection because look at it. Did it? I'm not second. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it did or not. It was nominated, folks. It was nominated because it's gloriously beautiful. Let's move on to the next. Oh my God. Oh my God, what am I saying? This deck is, like we said, stuck around, so it gets a slimy number 2, you know? Next up is the Carnival at the End of the World, one of the strangest decks that I have in my collection, and one that I considered getting rid of, but looking through it again, I was like, oh, no way. Let's take a look at some of these awesome cards. My husband got me this before we were dating, and it just like, has some nice nostalgia for it that way too, but also it really speaks to my aesthetic. It's like the actual renderings are beautiful. They're really cool. They're all very different and unique and interesting. You can tell there's tons of artistry and time that went into them. But more importantly, for me anyway, they're also all these little mini vignettes. I did a video on this one talking about micro-narrative and how each card tells this little teeny tiny story. And I love teeny tiny stories. I love them so much. I love dioramas. If you've ever played the game Captain Toad, I love that game. It's like exploring little mini dioramas. If you own a Nintendo Switch, go buy it because it's so good. And this deck just scratches all those itches for me. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Are there some boring cards? Yes, there are. Are there some incredible cards? Oh, yeah, there are. Absolutely. But I think as a whole, this deck has a super unique voice, and unlike some that give me pause because they don't have enough content to dig into, this has the content. It's weird content, and it doesn't always make sense, but that's fine. As long as it's got something to sort of dig into and look at, that's what I need. That's what I ordered off the menu for room service? What's the bit here, Colin? There's no bit. Whatever. Anyway, the deck is great. Carnival at the End of the World, such a good deck. And because it's stuck around, it gets a green, boom, baby, number 2. Oh, there's more. Oh, geez. This is not going well, folks. We're going to have to figure out something new for this. Next up, we have the Tarot Claude Rochius 1754. My one and only historical reprint deck, actually from 1754. And it is also my only, proper Marseille deck. I've got some that kind of scratch the itch, but this is like the Marseille deck of the collection. Look at all this jank. Loving all this jank. Yes. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. The thing that charms the pants off me, though, is that it's full of misprints. Oh, just these glorious little misprints. And I think that's so cool. It feels so deliciously human. It makes me just love all the little nuance and the intricacy of the deck. I wonder if we can find it. Oh yeah, the 5 of Wands. We can see another shadowed card printed there. The 10 of Swords with this beautiful leaf in the center. 3 in a row. These are the 3 cards I was going to hope to pull out. And the 8 of Wands, which has flowers from, I think, one of the, either from the Swords or from the Wands, doesn't matter. But it almost looks like fuel ejecting off of the, it is the 8, yes. This always throws me off because it looks like a wand, but it's just flowers. It's off the 8. It looks like fuel ejecting off the 8. These little misprints that not only, look really cool and feel very human and all that good stuff, but like can add to the meaning as well. I think that is so rad. And just having a proper Marseille feels right. I love having different systems in the collection. It's one of my top things that I look for in a new deck. I actually just made a video about like what makes a good tarot deck for me. And one of my main 4 criteria was, is the system different from what I already have? Because I think that that's totally, totally, totally important. Oh, it's bold, it's vibrant, it's beautiful. I actually bought another Tarot de Marseille historical reprint. I did the Claude Burdel, and it was lovely. There was nothing wrong with it. But it was just a little bit too close, and I decided that of those 2 decks, I want the one that's full of misprints, and some of the court cards are flipped around. And this is the one that I want. This is the very human Marseille that I think I needed in the collection. This one has been around for a couple of years, so we're going to give it, boom, baby, a nice, juicy 2. This is another newcomer to the scene, the Ibis Tarot. And it's so wild to think that these are newcomer decks because I've had some of these for a long, long time. Some of them I got right after I did my last deck update video. And so they just feel like classics, but they've only been in the 1 video. So, or I suppose in 2 videos or whatever. You get the idea. This one hasn't been in any videos. There's no videos. This is the video. The Ibis Tarot, talking about the thing we're talking about, is full of these gorgeous pips with really interesting formations, these crazy beautiful skies that just embrace color in all of its glory. Like green is not a color you see in the sky very often, but the wands say, why not? Let's put green all over the place. The colors are nothing like I would normally associate. Kind of like blues and yellows for the pentacles. Also this like purpley color, red for the cups, green for the wands. Totally nothing I would associate. Although now that I'm getting more into alchemy, greens for the wands, reds for the cups, I can actually start to see it a little bit more. More videos on alchemy to come. I think it's a really interesting topic and one that definitely relates to tarot in cool ways. Again, I digress. The Ibis Tarot is, I think, the much more successful of my 2 Egyptian-themed decks, at least in things that really spark joy and interest for me. This one, honestly, because it has Egyptian themes, but it feels a little less on the nose, and I got the Ancient Egyptian because it was more on the nose, but sometimes you don't know what you want until you have it, It's just, that's how life goes sometimes. But here we are. It's beautiful. This man has a leg on the shield, and that's so cool. And this is a very neat, weird deck that you should totally check out. It's out of print, by the way. My apologies if I didn't say that up front. But it's newcomer, so we're giving it, a 1. I'm saying we're giving it a 1 like I'm rating it. It's only been in 1 video, so it gets a 1. Next up, we have the beautiful, calm Joe Sparrow Tarot, because I feel like I was yelling, and I don't want to yell, but we are going to get louder. The Joe Sparrow is gorgeous. It is upside down, and one of these decks that's like almost unbelievably consistent in the way that the art is done. Like, granted, there's a huge variety of images that we're looking at here, but the width of the lines on every single card is exactly the same by design. It's all done in like a vector style. The color palettes are very consistent across everything. The way the figures are drawn are very consistent. Like, it is one of the most consistent things in the collection. I think it's awesome. And on top of that, and way more importantly, it is so smart. The cards are so cool. Look at this 8 of Wands. That's a cool 8 of Wands. I don't care who you are. And so many cards speak to just different things than you would expect. 2 of Wands being 2 people coloring, you don't see that very often. 9 of Pentacles being this person in the nucleus of an atom, don't see that very often. You do see this one very often as the Six of Swords, but listen, it's really, really cool. And I think having a deck that has such a unique voice to it really lends something to the collection. And as a reader, this deck has so many weird little nuances that you can pull a lot out of the images and lend some fun, quirky changes to your readings. And I think that's really important. You know, if every deck was exactly the same, you'd really only need one tarot deck. And of course, you could get more to collect, but I like having more to feel like I'm getting something different out of each one, you know? And this one absolutely provides something different. We're just going to take a moment here and look at a few more because I'm loving them. So good. Now, the Joe Sparrow, I cannot believe has not been in the video before. So this is going to be its glorious number 1. Dang. Feels like it's been around forever, you know? Coming in with the award for by far the coolest box in my collection, the Keymaster Tarot. Now, my husband got this, and he was totally treating himself. He got a big raise at work, and he's like, I want to buy the kick-ass Keymaster Tarot, and then he didn't like it. And I was like, no! So I was like, can I have that one? And he said yes, and I was so excited because I find it really, really smart and really cool. And he likes it too. It wasn't enough, you know? And what it is, it's playing cards with Marseille superimposed in gold over the top. So in some ways, it's very plain. And he is a man who loves symbols. So I totally get it. But the majors are beautiful. There's all this incredible geometry that's put over the top of it. This is a deck that just really, it feels old, but also new. Honestly, this deck gives me kind of a futuristic vibe to it. More to come on that one. I have an idea for a video that I'm cooking up. But I just think it's so cool. And this one is so different from anything else that I have. Not only because it's playing cards, but because of just the aesthetics of it. It's really something special. And some of the majors, they're really nice, but they're kind of generic. Some of them, though, he fast forwards to... Imagine we're talking really fast. This is like me doing that cool fast forward trick with the video. Look at that moon. Oh my moon. That's a card in this deck. A human being created that. That's unbelievable to me. It's so cool. We passed the Devil, which is equally amazing. That Hermit, come on now with that Hermit. Yeah, we get it, Colin. You like the deck a lot. But that's because it's beautiful. And it's gorgeous. And the box is so cool. And we're moving on now. But this one is brand new. So it gets a 1. It's only been in one video. And there's the 1. And there's the deck. And that's it. That's the whole segment. So we're on to the next one. Oh, my heart. La Corte de Tarocchi. This is one of the rare ones that has, came into the collection pretty early and just stuck around forever. Now, I should say, I was reading tarot a very long time before I started my YouTube journey. So this deck, in kind of my whole tarot life, is not as new, but in the grand scheme of things, this is an oldie and a goodie. And a lot of that time I spent, in early on in my tarot life, I felt like I was finding myself. I was kind of backpacking around Europe for a little while. But it really was. I think it takes time to understand how to read tarot. What do you want in a deck? What does a tarot deck mean to you? What do you want to get out of a tarot deck? And then you go through all these waves, or at least I did, of getting a whole bunch of decks, dropping your cards all over the place, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, realizing that almost nothing does, and kind of starting over. I can't tell you how many decks I've gotten rid of over the years. And my collection is pretty darn small. I think I have 24, 25 decks in total right now, and I only have 15 tarot decks. And I like it that way. I like to keep a really slim, trim collection because it makes me happy. Each deck I pick up is something special and something unique, like this one. The cardstock, if you have never felt this, go find it. Go leave your home right now and go on a cross-country trip to find a human being who owns this tarot deck and knock on their door and very politely say, excuse me, human being who owns the La Corte de Tarocchi, I would love to just touch cardstock. That's all. This isn't weird. And then you're going to touch it and you're going to, oh my God. and then you're going to leave and come back, and it's going to have been 6 months, and your boss is going to be like, where were you? We moved on. We hired another person. You're like, but my job, but all my money. And then you're going to win the lottery, and it's all going to come back to you, and you're going to have felt the deck. And I'm really excited for you. This is going to be a big journey. But for real, though, it's worth it. Like, the cardstock is so incredible. It feels like thick, like creamy watercolor paper. I've never felt cardstock like it before. The images are so cheery and peaceful and lovely. Look at me packing it up as I'm talking about the deck. That's because I did a whole bit and I got embarrassed. But yeah, it's really, really nice. And I think this deck is a little deck of stories in a box. And I just love it. And this is an absolute 3. This is a shining star of the collection. And I do not think this one's going anywhere. So we'll probably see it in a lot more deck collection videos to come. The Marguerite Peterson. This is another shining star. Not in the 3 videos category because it's only been in 2, spoiler alert. But this is like another one of those decks like the Mundi that was upside down and I consider just a staple of the collection. This deck is everything I want out of a tarot deck. It is schmeary, it's woo-woo, it's deep. The guidebook is full of poetry. The artwork is intense. It is detailed. You can tell that time was put into it. It's beautiful. It's colorful. It's interesting. It's all these things. It's all wrapped up in one. This is a deck that you can look through a million times and see a new detail that you never have before, a new little thing that you weren't expecting. And I just love that about that. About this, I should say. Excuse me. It just is something special. And you can tell heart and soul and mind and body and spirit were poured into this deck. Like, all these lines are actually individual dots making up these like layers of rock. What's that called? Oh God, I clearly don't know my kinds of rocks, but the rocks with lots of layers in them. It's like that. Check it out. You come here for art criticism and not geology, and I just proved it. Anyway, the point I was trying to make is you can really feel the effort put into all these images and just the love and I imagine the passion and the tears and the hours. And it just takes me somewhere. And I think that is quite powerful. When a deck of cards can really get you somewhere, that is something special. This is another one that I don't think is going to go anywhere in the collection. And it has stuck around for a while, and it gets a 2 for 2 years. 2 videos. What are we doing? 2 videos. Next up, we have the Marielle Tarot. I got rid of the original box because it was enormous, and I made my own. And this is a deck that I've had, again, forever. This was like my first weird tarot deck, if that makes sense. I bought a whole bunch that were like RWS clones and felt more tarot. And this one always was peeking at me from the periphery, being like, hey, why is there an ocean with this shell? Why is this kid on a tiger? You know, like, what is that situation happening? And, you know, I got it, and I was like, whoa, I don't know that I'm, like, ready for this one. And then I read the book, and I was like, oh, I am not ready for this one. And then over the years, it unfolds, and it unfolds, and unfolds. This is definitely one of the decks that has been in my collection the longest. Videos or not, I got this pretty darn early in the process. Since then, I have edged it in black. I have trimmed off the enormous black borders. This is a first edition. You can tell by that crazy hero font. And I've recently re-fallen in love with this deck. There was a while I thought I might get rid of it, and then I remembered that it's brilliant, and it's beautiful, and it's super weird, and those are all things that I love in a tarot deck. Brilliant and weird. Like that 8 of Swords. Ooh, this 9 of Wands. We're going to just get more and more intense. I'm like sweating over here. I'm so excited about this. It really is a gorgeous thing, though. Marielle, been there since the beginning. Let's give it a shining 3. Shine on, Marielle. When I said I was in the mood to just chat today, I guess I meant ramble, because here we go. The Masonic Tarot is up next, and this is another just staple of the collection. It is so gorgeous. The majors really do it for me. Oh, we're hitting all the majors. I must have had them stacked up for something else. These are the shining jewel of this deck. They're so intricate. They're interesting. They're really different. They're beautifully rendered. And they make this deck exciting. I love the minor arcana too, but the majors really make it pop for me. And you're just not going to see these in other decks. Like, I've seen a lot of tarot decks, and it's not like these are so wholly unique, but like, you're not going to see that in another tarot deck. Look at how beautiful that is. Our little fool with the golden spiral in it. Oh, so cool. And then the minors are gorgeous. They're much more simple. They're a little more, not a little more, they're very pippish, but they're cool. They're arranged in neat ways. The cups have these weird hands on them, and there's all this like very subtle gold baked into the cards. Really, really something special. Honestly, the biggest downside with this deck is that it's expensive and it's old, and that makes me not want to use it, which makes me sad because I really, really like it. But I don't really have much to critique about this one. And that's not why we're here anyway. We're here to celebrate all these and show them off and get them out of the box and just take a peek. This one has absolutely been here since the beginning. This was my first expensive tarot deck that I bought, I suppose I could say. And this one gets a lovely 3. Masonic, you just make my heart sing. The Tarot of the Drowning World, a deck so divisive in my mind that I made a whole video and a complicated way to judge all my decks to decide, do I actually want to keep this or not? And I'm delighted. Did I say that right? I'm delighted to say I kept it. It's really, really cool. It's very beautiful. This deck is all photography, my only photography deck, and they had these pools of water, and they, arranged flowers and animals and people and all sorts of stuff and took pictures from above. And it's really haunting and cool. It feels dark and mysterious. It's very unique, like almost like unapproachably unique in some ways. These are the same guys that made the Carnival at the End of the World, probably to no one's surprise, because it is just like, yep, it's artsy, it's very bizarre, but there's all these neat little nuances. I will say, I don't think that there's nearly as much meaningful symbolism in these cards as there is in the Carnival, but it's just so striking that I'll take it. I'll take it. Now, I didn't get the guidebook or anything with this because I'm not super big on guidebooks. But, just kind of looking at it and trying to break down the images, it's hard. It's very occult in the way that it's like, it's literally hidden. It's opaque. It's difficult to get into. But that doesn't mean doesn't mean it's not beautiful, and it doesn't mean it's not a keeper. And because this one is so new, it is a 1. Just one video, but a glorious one indeed. Let's see if it makes it to 2. Now it's time for my oldest deck in my collection, the Thoth. And I don't have the box anymore, so I have this lovely one that I keep incense in, and it's a scented experience. It's lovely. This is my home deck. This is the deck that I learned to read tarot on for real. I read before I got this. I actually held off a long time before I got this because the person I was learning tarot from, at least one of the 2 people, told me that I couldn't buy this deck until I really respected tarot and knew it, which, looking back, is extremely gatekeepy and I think massively unnecessary. But in some ways, I am glad that I waited until I got this deck because it really made me kind of respect it and hold it with some kind of reverence. And I sort of feared it at the time because it seemed like this unapproachable thing that you couldn't get. Little did I know it was mass market. And like, you couldn't find it anywhere, and it was so esoteric. And it sure is esoteric. It delivered in spades on that one. But it's also just a great reader of a deck. Like, granted, the Thoth is my home system, so I'm of course gonna find it very easy breezy to read. But I think that there's enough symbolism on each card to really clue you in on what it's talking about. And, especially once you kind of get in there and know it. Now, I've trimmed mine. I cut off all the keywords because I did that to memorize them initially, and I think the cards are just so beautiful as is. And this is a deck. Talk about one that is not going anywhere. I don't think I could get rid of this deck if I tried. It's just like one of my favorites. It's home. It feels so cozy. Let's put that death card. Let's put that one right on top there. And this one is absolutely a 3. Been around from the beginning. Gonna stay around until the end. I just love it. Next up is the True Black Tarot. A deck that I love to hate. This is maybe the most beautiful deck in my collection. It's a literal masterpiece. It's gorgeous. I will not stop singing the praises of how incredible this deck looks, the artistry, the craftsmanship. The artist, Adam, oh shoot, I'm sorry, everybody. Up next is the True Black Tarot. A deck that I love to hate. I say that because it's a literal masterpiece. I think this is the most beautiful deck in my collection. Like, just objectively, it's so good. It's so beautiful. And, like, look at all these incredible finishes. I have nothing to critique on the visual side of this deck. It is a literal masterpiece. That's my favorite Hangman card ever. It's so good. And that being said, it's impossible to use. The cardstock is so thick, it's like pieces of wood. It is so rose petally that it all sticks together and you can't shuffle it. So it's this gorgeous thing that I want to use all the time. And then I pick it up and I'm like, oh, I hate this. Like, I can barely touch this without getting irritated. That being said, it's not going anywhere. It's so good. I did a video talking about volume and scale with this deck and just how it plays with the idea of what's big and what's small, and it's so cool just all the way through. Cool is the word I would use to describe this deck. The creator is making another deck. They're going to launch it on Kickstarter this fall. I'm really anxious to see what that is, because with the quality and how, quite frankly, good this is, I think whatever they make next is going to be a stunner too. To be seen if I pick it up, but you never know. Hopefully the cardstock's a little more shuffleable. But yeah, I said a lot of bad things, but in all, honestly, nothing bad to say. I joke that I hate this deck, but I really don't. It is a masterpiece. It's gorgeous, and it's so cool if you ever get to see it in person. This does not do it justice. Oh, right. Two. It's been around for 2 videos. Last but not least, another young buck of the collection, the Tildwick Tarot. This is a weird tarot deck that's full of spaces and not people, and I love it. I love it. Just like we talked about with the Carnival at the End of the World, little kind of vignettes, just speak to my soul. And where Carnival at the End of the World is very abstracted and taken out and kind of clear, this one feels very zoomed in and gritty and opaque in some ways. It's very mysterious. I did a video kind of giving a tour of this deck, and it was so much fun. It's one of my favorite videos I've ever made. And I think it's just gorgeous. It's one that I, again, wanted for a long time because it was so rare and so interesting. But I was like, no, maybe not, whatever. Anyway, I got another printing and I grabbed it. And unlike the Ancient Egyptian, which we started with, this one really paid the bills. And I don't have any worries that this is going anywhere. That's kind of cool that we started with 2 out-of-print decks that got reprinted. Or we started and we ended with out-of-print decks that got reprinted. One that's like, and one that's like, oh, that hashtag Prism&Co right there. That's, what are your decks? Or O's? Anyway, we've gone fully into just the pits of ridiculousness here. But we're ending on the pits of lovely. This is a 1. It is newbie to the collection, but I really love it, and I anticipate sticking around for a while. And I appreciate y'all sticking around. Let me get these guys out of the way. It's really been such a joy. I don't think I made this at all clear at the beginning of the video, so now that you're here at the very end, this was just my tarot decks. I'm going to do another video of all my oracle decks, and then another video of all my husband's decks, because I've had a huge influx of those too. So I'm really excited to do all of those side by side, and we'll see them as they come out. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you had a great time. If you have deck collection videos, I've probably watched them because I love deck collection videos. It's one of my favorite things. Really hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, or day, or midday, or whenever it is, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye!